So, all of that being said, let's go through a couple of sample rhythms that you can use to accompany a reel. The very first one I already mentioned. It is just yuppa duppa 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 duppa. So accenting on beats 1 and 4. Eighth notes perfectly straight, no swing in this feel. And that has a very authoritative kind of confident sound. Kind of sounds like the opening of like a Bothy band track or something. Of course, they would play it a lot faster. They would a lot of their openings, yum ba ba bum ba ba bum, and you have somebody playing the Bowron in a similar rum ba ba bum, very downbeat based style. It's kind of heavy metal actually, sort of reminiscent of some of the rhythms of like Iron Maiden and all that stuff. But yeah, it's great stuff. So anyway, that's rhythm number 1. So yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not supposed to be playing chords. And our equivalent on piano, we don't necessarily have to fill in every eighth note, but our equivalent on piano, I think, would just be playing the quarter notes as downbeats and filling in certain eighth notes. So, and then that brings me to rhythm number 2, which I actually accidentally started to do on the piano because it's hard not to, which is adding quarter notes to your accent pattern. So what I mean by that is right now we're basically working with accenting half notes. We're playing eighth notes, but we're accenting in lengths or intervals that are equivalent to half notes. So 4 eighth notes worth. So yuppa duppa 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 duppa, always landing there. The next level would be to start to add in a couple of quarter note pickups. So these would be on 2 and 4. So for example, start off with the half notes. Now watch this. So now we have a varied landscape or texture of sometimes we're just going 1, 3, and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. But sometimes we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So you could preserve your 1 and 3 and just add in 2s and 4s, but always do the 1s and 3s. Or you could add in 2s and 4s and then possibly skip the 1s and 3s. And that will start to give you a more rollicking, rolling, kind of lilting, syncopated feel, right? When you have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So maybe for this level we should try to keep the 1s and 3s and just add 2s and 4s, just to keep it a little simpler. So I'll do it a bit slower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So that's level 1. Now, here's level 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And of course, the easiest way to affect this change is to just use a different chord on that beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So you get that sense of motion. It's especially good going into a new section. Boom, 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 to add that quarter note. So that's level 2, is basically adding those quarter note pickups on beats 2 and 4. And then step number 3, or I should say style number 3, is going to be like a backbeat heavy style. So backbeat is a term that's mostly, I think, used in like pop and rock music. I don't know if it's used much in Irish music, but it's that usually like the snare hit in a drum beat of a rock or a pop song. So for example, in those, like, imagine like a 90s R&B song or whatever, it's that cha. Or whatever that high pitched clap or snare or that's going to be the backbeat, and it's usually thought of as being on 2 and 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 2 bop, right? In some styles of music, it might be much faster, doom chop, country or something like that. And then in what we would call like halftime, which you'll hear in like electronic music, dubstep, like rap music, some rock songs, pop songs, it might be a very long, it might be, and that's like a longer phrase, but they're still evenly spaced, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And you could even do longer. You could go 1 and 2 and cha, cha. That's like an even longer phrase. That's like a double length. So anyway, in Irish music, we tend to put backbeats on the original 2 and 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it kind of has that. It has kind of a boom chick sound, but I want you to stay away from that boom chick idea of doom da doom da doom da. That's not really what this is. This is a little more flowing, a little more integrated. So this is going to be, let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you might be wondering, that sounds exactly like the other version. Well, what's happening is I'm finding it hard to keep them separate because in reality, when you learn all of these different techniques, you end up blending them. So you might have a strong downbeat, and then in the same tune, in the same 4 measures. You might mix up all these rhythms. So the ultimate goal is just to use all of these techniques and create your own, weave your own rhythm through this tune and listen to the melody and complement the melody. So, it's very rare that the best accompaniment for a tune would literally be to do any one of these things the entire way through. That's very rare. I mean, usually you would want to weave different things together. But I just thought I would separate out the different ideas in this list. So that's a backbeat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But be careful if you do start doing that. Just make sure you don't lose track of your downbeat. So we do want at least a small accent on 1 and 3. So, and what works really well on both piano and fretted instruments is to treat the 1s and 3s, so the original downbeats, as like a lower note, like a boom. Sorry, I didn't mean to click the guitar. Like a single string. And then the chicks, which are the 2 and the 4, as the higher strings. So let me make sure you can see what I'm doing here. So here I'm differentiating between the 4 beats. I'm not just going cha 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 through all 6 strings every time. I'm going bass, treble. The upstroke you don't have a huge amount of control over, but so bass, treble, then a different bass note, and then treble. So boom, treble, bass, treble, bass. Now, do I always hit the string accurately that I meant to hit? No, not always. So and sometimes I'm leaving out the third one. So sometimes I'm going boom cha ta boom cha ta boom cha ta cha ta boom cha ta doom cha ta boom cha ta. cha-da with that little rest in the middle. It's not really a rest as much as that I'm just skimming over the strings rather than playing a particular bass note. So hear that where it just right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. Okay. So, the fourth technique is basically what I alluded to already. It is using the original downbeat accents, the quarter note pickups, and the backbeats. And by the way, let me clarify something. The backbeats go on 2 and 4, which is exactly the same beats that the quarter note pickups go on. So those two are very similar. The thing about the backbeat was that we were emphasizing that rather than just adding them in as a complement to the 1 and 3. So in the backbeat style, which was our third thing on the list, that really comes out and you repeat it every measure exactly the same way, as opposed to it being like an ornament every once in a while. So it's the difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Where in that case, the 2s and 4s are being used as passing chords or passing rhythms from 1 to 3. And then it's the difference between that and then this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. That's a backbeat. Okay? So then the fourth style is to combine basically everything from the first 3 and to make longer phrases that start to kind of complement and imitate and go along with the melody. So that is more of an art form rather than like something I can just convey in one quick sentence. But for example, let's see if I can give you a little example. So, I don't know if you could tell, but what I'm trying to do there is set up expectations and then possibly deny them slightly and then fulfill them at a later time, an unexpected time. So, you know, set somebody up with a couple of bars of and then they think, oh, okay, we're doing this now, and then throw them off, leave one out, start over and hit the backbeats. So stuff like that. So that's and I guess that's kind of a huge category. That number 4. I mean, that's almost not even fair. That's kind of like really the entirety of what you're trying to do. But hey, I wrote it down on the notebook, so it must have been important. And then we haven't done anything on the piano, so yeah. So if I was going to try to do that same like style number 4, of course, style number 3, the backbeat is very simple on piano. That's kind of the default piano style, you know. Right? But you can see even there, if you listen to what I just did, I was doing a variation between just bass chord, or sorry. That's the simple version, right? Boom, chick, and then some of the time I was going where the boom and the chick are together, right? That's like style number 1. And then I mixed in a little bit of style number 2, you know, or where the bass might fill in one of those auxiliary beats, but it doesn't have a chick with it. It's just boom, 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 right? So you kind of have this two-layered approach, both on guitar and on piano. You have your doom, doom, ba-doom, 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 doom, doom. You have your almost your bass line, and then you have your trebly thing. Almost like the mandolin chops in a bluegrass band or something like that. So you're combining these two elements in different ways. So, style number 1. Now style 2. Right, hear those passing tones? Boom, boom, boom. And then style 3 is... And notice if you leave out the second bass note, so on beat 3, it's going to sound kind of reggae-ish. Right? So it's just so interesting how just with the 8 eighth notes in this bar, and so far we haven't even done anything with the ends of the beats. I don't know if you realize that, but we've only been working with 1, 2, 3, 4. We haven't done anything with the ands. I mean, we've been playing them, but we've just been fulfilling them in. We haven't accented them. So even with just 4 quarter notes, you can create just this wide variety of different feels and implications and styles. And that brings me to style number 5, or technique number 5, which is syncopations. Now, syncopations, it's basically, the definition of syncopation is simply accenting an offbeat. Now, there are 2 layers we can syncopate on. The upper layer we've already actually done, because if you think of the downbeats as being 1 and 3, then the offbeats would be 2 and 4 at that hierarchy. So if we're looking at the quarter note hierarchy, or you could think of them as being half notes. So dup, 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 dup. If you're looking at that level, then dup, 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 then those already were syncopated every time we accented 2 or 4. But I think syncopation in particular is when you go against the grain of something that you've already established. So boom chick is not syncopation, because that just establishes a repetitive pattern. Boom chick, boom chick, boom chick. At that point, the chicks don't feel novel. What might count as syncopation is if you're going boom, 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 chick, chick, boom, boom, chick, chick, boom, chick, boom, boom, chick, chick, boom, where you're doing a variations of booms and chicks. In that sense, you could sort of hear those chicks, which are landing on 2 and 4, by the way, as being kind of a novel syncopation. So that's one level. We've already actually been doing that implicitly in style number 4, and a little bit in style 2. For example, one of the main hallmarks of a syncopation is that you have the offbeat accented, but not the following downbeat. So, for example, if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Well, that doesn't sound syncopated because I hit the 4, which is an offbeat, but then I also hit the 1. So in that sense, the 4 sounds like a connector between 3 and 1. That's boring. I mean, it's great, but it's not syncopated. So da 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 is not syncopation. But if you hit the 4 and then do not accent the 1, then it's syncopated. So check that out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, boom, bam. It just immediately sounds more jazzy, right? It sounds like Lunasa, right? They're famous for their syncopations, because they have, the upright bass and the guitar, and those 2 guys just make like a really good team coming up with those accompaniments. So that's one level of syncopation, is the 2s and 4s, accenting those and leaving off of the 1s and 3s. That's this level. Now down here we have eighth notes, which we haven't really delved into yet. So now we need to think about 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Those ands. So generally reels go too fast to do a boom chick at that level. In other words, you're not going to be going, then it starts to turn into one of those Eastern European dances or something. or like a polka. Actually, that turns into a polka, right? So we're not doing polkas. But so you're definitely not gonna do a boom chick at this level. But what you can do is every so often you can accent an upstroke on the guitar, or on the piano it'll be one of the notes in between your quarter notes. So let's try it on piano first. So for example, 1 and 2 or let's slow it down. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Did you hear that? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Bop bop boom bop. It sounds like that. It's actually that rhythm bop bop boom bop is really famous in a style called reggaeton, which you've probably heard coming from the speakers of various cars in the area. The nature of that rhythm is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It's accenting the end of 2 prominently. So, and of course that rhythm comes from the Caribbean and, earlier from Africa and all that jazz. So anyway, right? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Now it doesn't have to be on the end of 2. Let's see what happens if we so what I'll do is I'll try to keep a quarter note bass line going in my left hand, so those will be playing 1 2 3 4, so then you can really tell which of my right hand are playing on the end of the beat versus the quarter note. So let's see. Dot. Hear that, right? Boom. So those are on. Bop. That's off. Beep, beep. Boom. Ba. Boom. Beep. Ba. Boom. Beep. Ba. Boom. That's a chain, right? Now that starts to sound quite jazzy, doesn't it? But that would be a good thing to practice on piano. Would be just, pick like a simple bass line. For example, I'm in D minor. I'm just going just up and down, and then I'm going, on, off, on, off. Just come up with your own, just improvise your own little, sequence of rhythms. And I know you're probably thinking like, gosh, it doesn't sound very Irish. It sounds kind of weird. You'd be surprised how really cool it can actually sound on certain tunes. Let's see. Let's see. So you hear that? That's almost like if you do that on piano, if you play certain bass lines, it actually turns into sort of like a Cape Breton style of accompaniment. So anyway, I know this is kind of a hard concept to grasp, but I would say one easy way to implement this would be to try a 3-3-2 rhythm. So what that is, it's 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2, and that adds up to 8. So that's my accent pattern is da-ba dee ba-ba dee ba-ba, right? And that'll add up to 8 eighth notes. But if you're playing guitar, make sure you still do down up down up down up down up. Don't try to do down up down down up down down up or some crazy nonsense. You just want to keep your exact same stroke pattern. So you're still doing this, but you're going to just give a nice accent on the end of 2. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So it's 1 and of 2 and 4. That's where the accents fall. So bop dee da dee bop dee da dee bop, right? That works really well, especially if you have a tune that's a little bit plain, that doesn't have its own syncopation or lift or lilt or anything like that. That can help to drive that tune along. So It's hard to think of an Irish tune that doesn't have great rhythm by itself. Gosh, I don't even know. But let's say, yeah, even if we're doing Maids of Mount Kisco, which I don't think needs this rhythm, but let's hear what it sounds like. So, so you kind of start to sound like John Doyle a little bit there, the a little bit more modern sound, right? So that's a little bit tricky to get, but maybe practice it slowly. So it'll be down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. Yup, and dee da dee dee da dop and da dee dee da dop dee da dee da dee dop dee da dee ba do ba na 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 da do dee da na na. And of course, it'll be accented even more if you change chords on the end of two, right? So I mean, it'll have a limited effect if you're just strumming the same chord, because if you don't accent it enough, then nobody will even be able to tell what you're doing. But if you change chords on that beat, then the effect is very, very clear. So, oh, you know who does that a lot is Zan McLeod. He loves doing that. Boom, do down, do 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 do. So that's number 5 is syncopations. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I'm mostly just, telling you guys about that just to keep your ears out for that, listen for it, maybe fool around with it a little bit. And then the 6th style is, trust me, they're actually not getting harder. I would say number 4 and 5 are the hardest. This one is basically just a quarter note bass line, and that is a kind of a very different thing. On the piano, I think that comes a little bit more naturally, and if you're not quite sure what notes to play, we'll have to go over that in another episode, but it's that feel of boom boom doom 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 doom, almost a little more jazzy, right? And that can be kind of a cool change from the more flowing rhythms that we usually hear, to just have that bass line. And then of course you can punctuate it if you want with those syncopations in the right hand. And that's what I was doing actually a minute ago when I was doing this. Let's see. And you'll notice my quarter note bass line often, features double notes. So I'm essentially thinking of it as being boom, boom, bing, bing, bum, but I'm doing boom, boom, bing, bing, bum, bum. So I'm doing 2 of each. So that sort of makes my workload easier. I don't have to think of 2 different bass notes. If I had to do 2 different ones, it would turn into a jazz exercise, That's actually quite challenging, and that probably takes its own training. But now we're talking about note choice. So basically, just rhythmically, it's and so if I was going to do that on guitar, let's see. It's hard to do on the guitar. Yeah. So I would say that is mostly useful as a practice exercise and as the occasional kind of accent maybe in the middle of something that you're doing. So, but yeah, it would just, it's good to practice. I know that seems like almost like condescendingly simple, but I kid you not, like you should practice that and really listen to all of those quarter notes and make sure that they have exactly the same articulation, right? Or if you're accenting any one over another, make sure that you're doing that on purpose and not on accident. So that's the sixth thing I wrote down, is just quarters in the bass line. And then the very last one is actually quite different. And I sort of am calling this delicate style. And that doesn't really tell you very much about what the rhythm is. But I sort of associate it with either fingerstyle guitar or arpeggiations on the piano. So for example, you might start off, and it's going to include rhythmic elements of the other styles, but it just doesn't have the driving nature of the other ones. Instead, it has more of a decorative, sort of delicate, almost graceful feel, like you're layering it on top of the melody instead of putting it underneath it. So for example, you might do a little arpeggiation, right? So that's how it might sound on the guitar. You might have lots of open spaces, or maybe one of these things. Oops, I think I kicked the microphone. And on the piano, it works really nicely. I would say especially at a little bit slower tempo. So, you know, those little cascading two-note figures. I'm just picking a pentatonic collection and just grabbing various notes. So that was like my A minor, right? Or maybe something like almost a classical thing, like a pattern-based thing, you know, deepin doopin dopin doopin. So, you know, and you don't hear that very often. So that's kind of an interesting style to try. Anyway, that is all the styles that I have for you today. I think this video was plenty long enough, and I'm sort of hyper, so I hope I didn't do too much ranting, and I hope that things were clear, and if they're not clear, you know, please send me a message. I know some of this video was a bit, I did talk very quickly through certain concepts. So please hit me up if you have any messages or any questions. Wow, it's very late. Hit me up if you have any questions about how to practice these techniques, or if you need me to explain any of them, or if you have a kind of rhythm that you really like playing over reels that you want to suggest. So anyway, have fun practicing, and I'll see you all next time.